Today on Around Kansas, leave it to Deb to find a connection between Joe Exotic and his ancestors in Kansas. Next in our wildlife segment, it's all about the hummingbird. On the front porch, Duane Toews is joined by agricultural advocate Brandi Buzzard Forbose. Ron Wilson is back with another poem, and we end with Michelle Martin, honoring those historic ladies who have answered the call.
Closed captioning brought to you by Ag Promo Source. Together we grow. Learn more at agpromosource.com.
Welcome to the Western Kansas Wildlife Travel Center, right here in my hometown of Oakley, Kansas. We're the front door of Western Kansas, located on 3 main highways, I-70, US 83, and US 40. And all those roads lead to history, beautiful scenery, and adventure, no matter which direction you go. We now have an IHOP. That brand that you've trusted up and down the road in all your travels is staffed with local folks, real people, just like you and me, and we're waiting on you to join us. So for fun, adventure, fuel up, fuel your body, and let's have some fun.
This segment brought to you by Kansas Corn. Learn more at kscorn.com.
Good morning, I'm Deb Goodrich. Welcome to Around Kansas. Got my pretty coffee cup. Isn't that a pretty antique coffee cup? Got my pretty coffee cup this morning and just enjoying spring. And I hope that you are too, wherever you are. I know a lot of us are disappointed because so many of our favorite events have been canceled this year. Mountain Plains Art Fair comes to mind. That's one of my favorite events all year long. Happens every 1st of June, except for this year, and the people that work so hard to put it on. So let's try to find some other ways to support our artists and musicians, our farmers and ranchers, all our small business owners, and maybe go online and buy something from them. You know, just find some way that we can support them. So I know that many of you, like myself, have taken advantage of maybe a little more time confined with nowhere to go to binge watch television. And maybe you were binge watching on The Tiger King. Yes, I will admit that I did. And I will also admit that I almost never buy People magazine. In fact, I can't think of another People magazine I have ever purchased. And I bought this one just because Joe Exotic was on the cover and this headline. What happened to Carol Baskin's husband? What did happen to Carol Baskin's husband? Okay, so The Tiger King, like one friend said, is sort of like Dynasty, except in a trailer park. And it's like watching a train wreck that you can't turn away from. It does have some redeeming qualities, and I do believe it is really a morality tale. And the moral of this story, people, is don't believe your own press releases, because you have some people who apparently started out with good intentions, and then they start believing their own BS, and that doesn't take you down a good path. So I think that's sort of the moral of the story. But why I bring this up today is Joe Exotic has some very interesting Kansas connections. And I found a very interesting article that talks about the connection between Catherine the Great and Joe Schreivogel. Yes, his real name is Schreivogel. The Volga Deutsch. So Joe's family, his ancestors, were some of those German Russians who came to Kansas. And you remember Catherine the Great had invited those Germans into Russia, you know, farm and be good citizens and all that good stuff, and we'll never bother you. Didn't quite work out that way. So a lot of those folks of German then Russian descent wind up in central to western Kansas. Joe was actually born in Garden City, but his ancestors, according to this story, settled in Munger. So there are a lot of good folks in Munger. I have not asked how they feel about the Tiger King and its success, its viral popularity all over the country. But, you know, after you watch the show, if you do, I have to say Joe may be close to the most normal person on it. It really is, it's pretty interesting. So, with what few brain cells I have left after having watched the season of The Tiger King, I'm going to bring you a really great show. So stay with us.
In 1821, a trade route was opened from Missouri in the United States across prairies and mountains to Mexico. In 2021, we will mark 200 years of epic conflicts and grand adventures, larger-than-life personalities, and sweeping landscapes. Join us on an historic journey. The Santa Fe Trail lives on.
Find us on social media or santafetrail.org.
Okay, looks like it's time for our tour. Welcome to the Fort Wallace Museum. Here at the museum, you're going to find some really interesting stuff like our replica stagecoach from the Butterfield Overland Dispatch. We've got facades from the fort buildings. We've got an 1870s flag. There's a plesiosaur that was discovered locally. We've got the Ray pump organ collection. We're a little bitty place with a great big story, and we'd love to have you.
Sure Crop Fertilizers was started by my father, Don Sherman, and my mother, Shirley Sherman. Family business that started in the 80s. We predominantly focus on plant nutrients and what we can do to give growers better responses with the fertilizer dollars that they do, and what we can do to make those things work better for that grower. We're based out of Seneca, Kansas. We work with growers in their soil analysis to figure out what they need, and then we can put those in a blend that gives them the best results, and so that we can deliver that direct to their farm so that they have those nutrients where they need them, when they need them, and so that they can apply them in a manner that's very efficient to them and works well on their planting systems and what they're doing. Sure Crop Fertilizers has been around for a long time. We always say we're big enough to take care of everything you need, but we're small enough to do it quickly. You can get a hold of us at 1-800-635-4743. Our website is surecropfertilizers.com, and you can always email me at Corey@surecropfertilizers.com, and with any questions you have, we'll be glad to answer it and work with you.
This segment brought to you by the Western Kansas Wildlife Travel Center in Oakley.
Do you have your hummingbird feeder out yet? You know, there are a lot of us that really aren't into nature very much, but when those little hummingbirds show up, it's really big news. Let's take a look at that amazing little creature.
Flying jewels, some call them, and I think that is a pretty appropriate title. All around Kansas, folks are hanging their feeders on decks and porches in hopes of attracting these amazing little creatures. Hummingbirds, our smallest feathered friends, according to Kansas Department of Wildlife, Parks, and Tourism, live only in the Americas. Of the 319 species, 15 are found in the U.S., and only the ruby-throated hummingbird is common in Kansas. It nests along the streams and woodland parks and is more abundant in the eastern half of the state. The rufous and broad-tailed hummingbirds can be seen during migrations. Ruby-throated hummers are a mere 3.5 inches long and weigh only 4.5 grams. This compares to a 5.25 inch, 27-gram house sparrow. The sphinx moth, the adult form of the tomato hornworm, seen feeding at flowers during summer evenings, is sometimes mistaken for this darting atom of bird life. Hummers can be seen in Kansas from mid-April to October. They winter along the Gulf Coast, Mexico, Panama, and Yucatan. Some even cross the 500-mile-wide Gulf of Mexico in about 20 hours non-stop. These small birds must consume large amounts of energy to compensate for their high metabolic rate. Feeding about every 10 minutes, they eat 1/2 of their body weight in insects and nectar each day. In order to prevent starving to death at night, hummingbirds go into a torpor or a temporary hibernation, and their heart rate lowers from 500 to 40 beats per minute. Thanks to friends Pam and Doug Whitson, Sherry Ann Durst, and Diane Strange for sharing some of their hummingbird photos and video from all corners of Kansas. Welcome to the Western Kansas Wildlife Travel Center, right here in my hometown of Oakley, Kansas. We're the front door of Western Kansas, located on 3 main highways, I-70, US 83, and US 40. And all those roads lead to history, beautiful scenery, and adventure, no matter which direction you go. We now have an IHOP. That brand that you've trusted up and down the road in all your travels is staffed with local folks, real people, just like you and me, and we're waiting on you to join us. So for fun, adventure, fuel up, fuel your body, and let's have some fun. Highways 40, 83, and I-70 come together right here in Oakley. Roads that lead to businesses, to magnificent rock formations, to scenic vistas, to places where legends were made. Roads that lead us home. Discover Oakley, the gateway to Western Kansas.
The Kansas Wheat Innovation Center in Manhattan is rediscovering ways to get improved varieties and new genetics in the hands of farmers faster. Grower-led and checkoff-funded research initiatives are bringing about positive change. This grassroots leadership provides a strong voice in Topeka and Washington, D.C. Now is the time to partner with Kansas Wheat in moving wheat forward. Kansas Wheat Commission and Kansas Association of Wheat Growers. Farmers investing in their future and yours. Log on to rediscoverwheat.org.
This segment brought to you by Bob Schwartz Financial. Values, commitment, transparency.
I'm Duane Toews, and my guest today is Brandi Buzzard Forbose, an agriculture advocate. Brandi, talk a little about the trials to get to the point where you're at speaking with consumers.
Being an agriculture advocate is not something that you do one day and then you make this massive impact and then you're done. There's a lot of advocates like myself out there that are taking pictures and writing blog posts and trying to engage with consumers, and they're making a little bit of headway every single day, and they've been doing it for years. And that honestly, that's what it takes to build trust with a consumer in, New York City who lives in a high-rise apartment. It's multiple times of connecting with that person and understanding where they're coming from, why they're concerned about their food, and just building that trust. So I wish I could just say, everybody could go out and start being an advocate today and tomorrow have, this huge impact and we're going to change the way people perceive our food system. I really wish that it was that way, but unfortunately it's a lot of time and consistency and effort that causes us to be effective advocates.
Well, the great point that you bring up is that the success doesn't happen overnight, but education doesn't either. I mean, if we look at anything that we've wanted to learn about, it took time and effort. Kind of goes along those same note of what you implied, that you've been blogging for a long time, meeting the consumer on their terms, so to speak.
Yes, like I said, it has been about 10 years, and I started out probably honestly wasting a little bit of my time because I just knew that when I started on my blog, I wanted to write, and I wanted to write about agriculture, but I didn't have a square handle on who my target audience was. I didn't really sit down and think it out all the way through how I would connect with people and what I would talk about. So now, 10 years later, or 10 plus years later, I can look back and say to identify who you're trying to reach and then write your blogs or take your photos or write your captions or do videos or whatever an advocate chooses to do, but do that with that target consumer or target audience in mind.
I think some people maybe are frustrated, though, as far as, I guess if I look at my social network of friends, there aren't many of those 35-year-old moms in New York City, for example. So you have to do something and make some kind of a concerted effort to to get your blog into those circles, I suspect.
Right, and so the way that has happened is, again, just a lot of time and consistent plodding forward. You know, I started my blog, and then I started a Facebook page for the blog so that I could post the blog post there, and hopefully my friends would share the post and their friends would see them. Because, you know, if I have 10 farming friends and they all share something, not all of their friends are farming people. You know, they have families that aren't involved in agriculture. So the goal was always to use your farming and ranching network to help reach those family members and those friends of people who don't understand agriculture. And that's honestly how my Facebook page has gotten to the reach that it has. Instagram has been a slow journey to reach people. It's just, again, it's a methodical daily effort, you know, to get to that. And the same with Twitter. You seek out people and follow people who have similar interests. Hopefully in the process of connecting and creating those relationships, they're able to learn a little more about agriculture and where their food comes from.
I'm Bob Swartz, and I've devoted the last 43 years to helping Kansans reach their retirement goals and to protect the family farm. At Bob Swartz Financial, we believe everyone should be able to live the retirement they've always dreamed of. Our team of professionals can help you create an efficient strategy using a variety of investment vehicles to help you address your financial needs and your concerns. Bob Swartz Financial values commitment and transparency.
At Farm Credit, we partner with America's farmers who work hard each and every day to grow the food that we all enjoy. It's not an easy task, but it's an important one. Farm Credit is proud to work with farmers and ranchers, lending support in rural America.
Sure Crop Fertilizers was started by my father, Don Sherman, and my mother, Shirley Sherman. Family business that started in the 80s. We predominantly focus on plant nutrients and what we can do to give growers better responses with the fertilizer dollars that they do, and what we can do to make those things work better for the grower. We're based out of Seneca, Kansas. We work with growers in their soil analysis to figure out what they need, and then we can put those in a blend that gives them the best results, and so that we can deliver that direct to their farm so that they have those nutrients where they need them, when they need them, and so that they can apply them in a manner that's very efficient to them and works well in their planting systems and what they're doing. Sure Crop Fertilizers has been around for a long time. We always say we're big enough to take care of everything you need, but yet we're small enough to do it quickly. You can get a hold of us at 1-800-635-4743. Our website is surecropfertilizers.com, and you can always email me at Corey@surecropfertilizers.com, and with any questions you have, we're glad to answer it and work with you.
This segment brought to you by Santa Fe Trail Meats in Overbrook. Let us help feed your family.
As we've adjusted to life with coronavirus, we're working under stay-at-home orders and told to do social distancing. We're told to do everything virtually nowadays. Well, we're doing our best, but Mother Nature will only go so far. This even applies to our veterinarian. Here's a poem I wrote called Virtual Reality. Due to coronavirus, the vet had changed his ways. Virtual consultations now filled his practice days. The health department said to do social distancing, avoiding personal contact as part of everything. So the vet now worked online, reviewing clients' vaccinations as they prepared to move cattle to their summer destinations. Then one old rancher said with a twinkle in his eye, "Hey doc, there's something that I've just got to try. The county says I've got to do everything virtually, using online or conference calls or Zoom technology. So when I do my daily chores and the cows want to be fed, I think I'm just going to give them virtual feed instead." Well, the vet smiled. "You could sure try that somehow, but in the end, all you'll have will be a virtual cow." Happy trails.
Okay, looks like it's time for our tour. Welcome to the Fort Wallace Museum. Here at the museum, you're going to find some really interesting stuff, like our replica stagecoach from the Butterfield Overland Dispatch. We've got facades from the fort buildings. We've got an 1870s flag. There's a plesiosaur that was discovered locally. We've got the Ray pump organ collection. We're a little bitty place with a great big story, and we'd love to have you.
In 1821, a trade route was opened from Missouri in the United States across prairies and mountains to Mexico. In 2021, we will mark 200 years of epic conflicts and grand adventures, larger-than-life personalities, and sweeping landscapes. Join us on an historic journey. The Santa Fe Trail lives on.
Find us on social media or santafetrail.org.
Kansans have a new choice for Medicare supplement insurance plans. With Medicare supplement insurance plans from Kansas Farm Bureau, you have access to 4 levels of coverage, affordable rates, and service from an organization that's served Kansans for more than 100 years. For more information on Kansas Farm Bureau Medicare supplement plans, including rates and to apply, visit kfbhealthplans.com.
This segment brought to you by Kansas Farm Bureau, the voice of agriculture. To join today or for more information, go to kfb.org or find us on Facebook and Twitter.
Last week, I talked about some incredible women who have answered the call all over the world who happen to be from Kansas. This week, Michelle has a great overview spanning several generations. Good morning, Michelle. So good to have you with us.
Good morning, Deb, and good morning to all our viewers. In the 1940 Hollywood classic film Santa Fe Trail, starring Olivia de Havilland and Errol Flynn, a rough-and-tumble Kansas immigrant remarked that Kansas is tough on women and horses. Today, I want to introduce you to Kansas women who have answered the call to help their families, their state, and their nation.
From the settlement of Kansas in the 1850s to the present day, Kansas's women have answered the call to help their families, state, and nation during times of need and distress. Some of the first women to make their way to the territory in the 1850s were abolitionists who worked hard to ensure that slavery would not prevail in the new state. Danger and hardship motivated some Kansas women. In Lawrence and Fort Scott, women learned to shoot to help send a message to Missouri border ruffians. In 1856, Mrs. Spear threw a hot pot of water on a Missourian who was searching for her husband, while other Kansas women smuggled cartridges and caps in their stockings and petticoats to avoid them being confiscated by Missourians who patrolled the trails in eastern Kansas. When Kansas men marched off to war in 1861, women on the home front once again stepped up and served their state and nation. A.J. Luther, a woman from Elwood, Kansas, served in the Union Army as a soldier. Women in towns like Fort Scott knitted mittens, made slippers, rolled bandages, and held fundraisers and created aid societies to support the war effort. After the Battle of Mine Creek, Emma Caroline Morley and the ladies of Fort Scott tended to the wounded at the military hospital in town, while Barbara Jane Dolson walked the battlefield providing aid and comfort. During World War I, Kansas women again rose to the challenge. Esther Hulse, a survivor of Quantrell's raid of 1863, eventually made her way to Cherryvale, where she organized a chapter of the Red Cross and was a member of the Women's Relief Corps that aided American doughboys. Some women came to Kansas to help as well. Brigitte Sabo from North Dakota was stationed at Fort Riley as a nurse. Emily Morgan, a Leon, Kansas native, used her nursing skills to aid American soldiers during World Wars I and II. She also served as a public health nurse in Alaska during a diphtheria outbreak in 1924 and was called the Angel of the Yukon. She eventually returned home to Kansas and continued her nursing career. The 1918 influenza epidemic that started at Camp Funston saw Kansas nurses entering the hospital wards across the state as they cared for the afflicted. Women made masks and shared with neighbors and tended to the ill. During the 1930s, Kansans faced not only the economic depression, but also drought, dust storms, and tuberculosis. Kansas Senator Arthur Capper used the womanly saintly image of Doris Gask, dressed in Red Cross robes, to drive home the message of good health in his crusade against TB. When dust storms ravaged communities in southern and western Kansas, women again played important roles in protecting their families. Women gathered together to make masks and come up with solutions to keep dust from entering their homes. With the outbreak of World War II, women once again answered the call and served their communities. Verena Zeller from Paxico in Wabaunsee County used her nursing skills in the U.S. Air Force Nursing Corps. As a second lieutenant in the Army, stationed at Fort Riley, she honed her skills for trauma care.
She worked as a flight nurse and eventually was promoted to the rank of colonel. Julia Cabance, a member of the Prairie Band of Potawatomi Nation, enlisted in the Army in 1942 at the age of 33. She served stateside, and after her military service ended, she continued a life of volunteerism. Women also left their homes to work in the war industries. In Wichita, women found employment building aircraft at Boeing and Beach. In Kansas, all over, women left small towns and farms and made their way to factories to do their part for the war. Thousands of women riveted aircraft, helped build tanks, jeeps, and other materials for the war effort. Today, women across Kansas are on the front lines in the fight against COVID-19, working as doctors, nurses, first responders, grocery store stockers and cashiers, clergy, and city officials. Kansas women are working hard to protect their communities. Like their ancestors in 1918 and again in the 1930s, women across Kansas are making masks for healthcare workers, family members, and friends, once again showing the strength, resilience, and ingenuity of Kansas women. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and I can't wait for you to join me on another historical adventure somewhere around Kansas.
Thank you for sharing Wednesday morning with me. I'm Deb Goodrich, and I'll see you somewhere around Kansas.
Closed captioning brought to you by Ag Promo Source. Together we grow. Learn more at agpromosource.com.
At Farm Credit, we partner with America's farmers who work hard each and every day to grow the food that we all enjoy. It's not an easy task, but it's an important one. Farm Credit is proud to work with farmers and ranchers, lending support in rural America.
Ag Promo Source is a unique group of marketing specialists with one mission: help your ag business grow. Each affiliate has their own area of expertise, and they work together to bring you advice, products, and services. To get started, visit agpromosource.com. Ag Promo Source. Together we grow.
Sure Crop Fertilizers was started by my father, Don Sherman, and my mother, Shirley Sherman. Family business that started in the 80s. We predominantly focus on plant nutrients and what we can do to give growers better responses with the fertilizer dollars that they do, and what we can do to make those things work better for the grower. We're based out of Seneca, Kansas. We work with growers in their soil analysis to figure out what they need, and then we can put those in a blend that gives them the best results, and so that we can deliver that direct to their farm so that they have those nutrients where they need them, when they need them, and so that they can apply them in a manner that's very efficient to them and works well in their planting systems and what they're doing. Sure Crop Fertilizers has been around for a long time. We always say we're big enough to take care of everything you need, but yet we're small enough to do it quickly. You can get a hold of us at 1-800-635-4743. Our website is surecropfertilizers.com, and you can always email me at Corey@surecropfertilizers.com, and with any questions you have, and we're glad to answer it and work with you.